Heimskringla is the best known of the Old Norse kings' sagas. It was written in Old Norse in Iceland by the poet and historian Snorri Sturluson, California, 1230. The name Heimskringla was first used in the 17th century, derived from the first two words of one of the manuscripts. Heimskringla is a collection of sagas about the Norwegian kings, beginning with the saga of the legendary Swedish dynasty of the Ynglings, followed by accounts of historical Norwegian rulers from Harald Fairhair of the 9th century up to the death of the pretender Eystein Maler in 1177. The exact sources of his work are disputed, but included earlier kings' sagas, such as Morkinskinna, Fagskinna, and the 12th century Norwegian synoptic histories and oral traditions, notably many skaldic poems. Snorri had himself visited Norway and Sweden. For events of the mid-12th century, Snorri explicitly names the now-lost work Ridjarstiki as his source. The composition of the sagas is Snorri's manuscript history. The earliest parchment copy of the work is referred to as Kringla. It voyaged from Iceland to Bergen, Norway, and was moved to Copenhagen, the university library. At that time it had lost the first page, but the second starts Kringla Heimsens, the Earth's Circle, of the Lane translation. In the 17th century, copies were made by Icelanders John Eggertsson and Asgeir Johnson. Eggertsson's copy went to the Royal Library at Stockholm. The Copenhagen manuscript was among the many valuables destroyed in the Copenhagen fire of 1728. Only one leaf of the manuscript survived, and it is now kept in the National and University Library of Iceland. Translations. By the mid-16th century, the Old Norse language was unintelligible to Norwegian, Swedish or Danish readers. At that time several translations of extracts were made in Norway into the Danish language, which was the literary language of Norway at the time. The first complete translation was made around 1600 by Peder Clausen Friis, and printed in 1633. This was based on a manuscript known as Jofraskinna. Subsequently the Stockholm manuscript was translated into Swedish and Latin by Johan Peringskiold and published in 1697 at Stockholm under the title Heimskringla, which is the first known use of the name. This edition also included the first printing of the text in Old Norse, a new Danish translation with the text in Old Norse, and a Latin translation came out in 1777 to 1783. An English translation by Samuel Lane was finally published in 1844, with a second edition in 1889. Other English translations followed. In the 19th century, as Norway was achieving independence after centuries of union with Denmark and Sweden, the stories of the independent Norwegian medieval kingdom won great popularity in Norway. Heimskringla, although written by an Icelander, became an important national symbol for Norway during the period of Romantic nationalism. In 1900, the Norwegian Parliament, the Storting, subsidized the publication of new translations of Heimskringla into both Norwegian written forms, Landsmål and Riksmål, in order that the work may achieve wide distribution at a low price. Scope. Heimskringla consists of several chapters, each one individually called a saga, which can be literally translated as tale. The first of these tells the mythological prehistory of the Norwegian royal dynasty, tracing Odin, described here as a mortal man, and his followers from the east, from Askeland in Asgard, its chief city, to their settlement in Scandinavia. The subsequent sagas are devoted to individual rulers, starting with Halfdan the Black, and ending with Magnus Erlingsson. The saga narrates the contests of the kings, the establishment of the Kingdom of Norway, Viking expeditions to various European countries, straying as far afield as Palestine in the saga of King Sigurd the Crusader. The stories are told with a life in freshness, giving a picture of human life in all its reality. The saga of Olaf Haraldsson is the main part. His 15-year-long reign takes up about one-third of the entire work. The Saga of Harald Hardrada narrates his expedition to the east, his brilliant exploits in Constantinople, Syria, and Sicily, his skaldic accomplishments, and his battles in England against Harold Godwinson, the son of Earl Godwin, where he fell at Stamford Bridge in 1066, only a few days before Harold himself fell at the Battle of Hastings. This saga is a splendid epic in prose, and is also of particular relevance to the history of England. The first part of the Heimskringla is rooted in Norse mythology. As it advances, fable and fact all curiously intermingle, and it terminates in factual history. The value of Heimskringla as a historical source has been estimated in different ways during recent times. The historians of mid-19th century put great trust in the factual truth of Snorri's narrative, as well as other Old Norse sagas. In the early 20th century, this trust was largely abandoned with the advent of saga criticism, pioneered by Kurt and Lauritz Weibull. These historians pointed out that Snorri's work had been written several centuries after most of the events it describes. In Norway, the historian Edward Bull famously proclaimed that, "We have to give up all illusions that Snorri's mighty epic bears any deeper resemblance to what actually happened in the time it describes." A school of historians has come to believe that the motives Snorri and the other saga writers give to their characters owe more to conditions in the 13th century than in earlier times. Heimskringla has, however, continued to be used as a historical source, though with more caution. It is not common to believe in the detailed accuracy of the historical narrative, and historians tend to see little to no historical truth behind the first few sagas. However, they are still seen by many as a valuable source of knowledge about the society and politics of medieval Norway. The factual content of the work tends to be deemed more credible where it discusses more recent times, as the distance in time between the events described and the composition of the saga was shorter, allowing traditions to be retained in a largely accurate form, and because in the 12th century the first contemporary written sources begin to emerge in Norway. Contents: Heimskringla contains the following sagas: Ynglinga Saga, Saga of Halfdan Svarte, Saga of Harald Harfager, Saga of Hakon Gothi, Saga of King Harald Grafeld, Saga of King Olaf Tryggvason, Saga of Olav II Haraldsson, excerpt from Conversion of Dale Gudbrand, Saga of Magnus Gothi, Saga of Harald Hardrade, Saga of Olaf Kyrre, Saga of Magnus Befieta, Saga of Sigurd the Crusader and his brothers, Saga of Magnus Blindi and of Harald Gilli, Saga of Sigurd, Eystein and Inga, the sons of Harald, Saga of Hakon Herðabræðs, Saga of Magnus Erlingsson,